I could tell you about my mental health. I remember having terrible anxiety about going back to school. It's an 8-hour drive from where I live to where I went to school, and I cried in my driveway and I begged my parents not to make me, and they didn't know what to do. Because on one hand, I think they were like, you have to go to school. Like, you need to get it together. You need to go to school for your life, not just like, but also I think they weren't sure if they should send me, like if I was that upset, maybe I shouldn't go, but I did. So I went to Oberlin College in Ohio, and I chose it in part because my family lives in Ohio, my extended family, my grandparents and aunts and cousins. And I had grown up very far away from them. And when I went to school there, then I had a good balance, I think, between my independence. But I had a very bad semester, and I was in a bad relationship, and it all blew up right during exams, which was terrible. And I couldn't finish my exams. I had to take an incomplete, and of course it was calculus. Of course it was the worst subject. I had to take an incomplete, and my grandparents came to get me. And then I sort of recovered in their house. My first therapist, I don't remember his name, but he looked like Sigmund Freud. And he was a lovely man, very old school. And he wanted to like analyze my dreams. And he was not particularly interested. He didn't seem to think that I needed medicine. Had a different doctor prescribe me my medicine. But it definitely took me, so that was 2014 maybe, 2015. And I don't think I really sort of nailed my mental health infrastructure until after college, 2018 maybe. That was definitely a difficult thing for me to admit, that I might need one and benefit from one. Now, I love my therapist so much, and we have such an excellent relationship that now I'm like, everyone should have a therapist. But I didn't feel like that in the beginning. And I definitely felt like I should be able to tough it out. I resisted medication for a really long time. Because I felt like, we live in this culture where we're just self-medicating all the time with caffeine, right? With drugs and alcohol. People are constantly trying to do things to make themselves feel better, to make sure that you're having a good time, or you're, that people take, study drugs so they can concentrate, and they take pre-workout, they do all of these things, right, to try to regulate bodies, and that can be, right, well, you say to yourself, is this natural? Is this how it's supposed to be? Because medication can't solve your mental health problems all by itself. If you can take as many pills as you want, but if you're just staying in bed all day and you're not socializing or exercising or are sort of working on, self-improvement, self-care, then no amount of medication can help you. But for me, it was the boost I needed. Without it, have you ever skinned your knees or gotten scraped your skin and it just feels raw, very sensitive? Without my medication, I'm extremely sensitive. And if something happens, if I make a small mistake at work, a grammar mistake, if I say the wrong thing, then I can't recover by myself. Then I just writhe in agony for days about, this one grammar mistake or this one small thing that I said. And the fact is that people make mistakes all the time, and you have to somehow be able to still like yourself when you make mistakes. And the medication, it's like armor. It's like, okay, so like I made a mistake, I got hit with that bullet, but it didn't penetrate me so deeply, and now I can recover and move on. And I should say that this is the first medication that I was on was not the right one, and I definitely felt numbed. I felt that that my emotions were just not as strong, all of them. Happiness, sadness, that they were all kind of evened out, and I did not like that feeling. And that was not the right prescription, and now I have a better one. That I felt in the beginning like medication might make me less of myself, or like that my depressed self was the true me, and that the medication would change me into someone else. But now I feel that the true me, right, is the girl who's on medication and who, right, is tearful and joyful and enjoys life and gets to do all of these lovely things. Sort of my brain chemistry was preventing me from being my best self, and now I'm back to where I'm supposed to be. Selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, and I am not a chemist, but the way I understand it is that in your neurons, your brain cells, you have a synapse, like a gap, where there are neurotransmitters that float around and they affect your emotions. And serotonin, it's an important one, it makes you happy. And without the reuptake inhibitors, right, your brain kind of dumps all of its serotonin and then it slurps it back up. And so you miss the part where you get to actually feel well and happy. And when so the medicine inhibits that reuptake process so that they get to float around in there and do their job. So yeah, I don't know if that's actual science, but that's how I envision it happening in my brain.